The planet Zareth Prime floated like a jewel in the dark sea of space. It was the capital of the Zareth Empire, an ancient and proud civilization that ruled hundreds of star systems. Their tall silver towers touched the clouds. Their soldiers trained from childhood in arts of battle, and their pride was as strong as their power. For centuries, the Zareth had looked down on younger species, seeing them as weak or unworthy. And when humanity first entered the galactic stage, the Zareth laughed. To them, humans were soft, fragile, and impulsive, a species that had only just learned to leave their homeworld. Yet humanity was growing. The Earth Alliance had explored deep space, building colonies and joining the Galactic Council. This made the Zareth nobles furious. They believed humans had no right to sit among the great empires. To test humanity, the Zareth invited them to a combat exhibition, a grand event held in the arena of Zareth Prime. Warriors from different species would duel in front of millions, proving their worth. For humans, it was meant to be humiliation. Among the spectators sat Princess Elira Zareth, daughter of the Empress. Her silver skin shimmered under the twin suns, and her sharp eyes sparkled with arrogance. She sat upon a crystal throne beside her mother, her voice smooth but full of mockery. "Mother," she said, "why do we allow these humans to join our council? They are barely evolved from animals. Do they think bravery makes them equal to us?" The Empress Thalara only smiled. "Pride can blind, my daughter. Let the arena decide their worth." When the announcer called for the first duel, the crowd roared. A Zareth champion, Commander Varkesh, tall and covered in shining armor, entered the arena. His reputation was legendary. No alien had ever defeated him. Then, from the opposite gate, a single human walked out. He wore simple combat gear, with an Earth insignia on his chest. His name was Captain Orion Hayes, a soldier from the United Earth Defense Force. His face was calm, his eyes steady, his posture straight. There was no fear in him, and only focus. The crowd burst into laughter. "A human?" Someone shouted. "He will last 10 seconds. He looks so small." Another mocked. Even Princess Elira smirked. "Poor creature," she said softly. "Perhaps he does not understand what kind of death he has chosen." But Orion stood still, unfazed by the noise. He simply bowed toward his opponent and said, "Captain Orion Hayes, representing humanity. Let us fight with honor." Varkesh laughed deeply. "You speak of honor, little human. I will show you mercy. I will end it quickly." The signal horn blew, and the duel began. The Zareth champion moved first, charging like a thunderstorm. His blade, glowing with plasma energy, sliced through the air. Orion barely avoided the strike, rolling to the side with quick precision. The crowd gasped. The human had dodged a blow that could shatter stone. Orion didn't try to match strength for strength. Instead, he used speed and strategy. He kept his distance, studying every move of his opponent. Each time Varkesh attacked, Orion noticed small patterns: the pause before a strike, the slight shift in footing, the overconfidence in his posture. Minutes passed. The alien grew angrier. "Stand and fight, coward!" Varkesh shouted. Orion replied calmly, "A wise soldier fights to win, not to show pride." He suddenly threw a small flash device that blinded his opponent for a second, just enough time to move behind him. With a precise strike, Orion used an energy baton to overload the Zareth's armor joints. Sparks flew as the champion stumbled. The crowd went silent. Orion pressed forward, using his agility to stay out of reach. Then, in one final motion, he disarmed Varkesh and knocked him to the ground with a tactical sweep. His weapon stopped just an inch from the alien's neck. Silence filled the arena. The impossible had happened. A human had defeated one of the Zareth's greatest warriors. Princess Elira stood up from her throne, her expression a mix of disbelief and anger. How can this be?" she whispered. Around her, nobles murmured in confusion. Some were furious. Others were impressed. The Empress, however, smiled faintly. "Interesting," Thalara said softly. "He fights with mind, not muscle." The announcer's voice echoed victory to Captain Orion Hayes of Earth. Orion lowered his weapon and offered a respectful bow to his fallen opponent. Then he turned toward the royal seats and saluted the Empress and Princess. His movements were humble, disciplined, and full of respect. The Empress nodded back. But Elira turned away, her pride stung. She muttered, "A trick. It must have been a trick." Later that day, in the grand hall of the palace, a reception was held for the combatants. Orion arrived in his formal Earth uniform, modest but clean. Alien diplomats surrounded him, asking questions, offering forced compliments, or simply staring. Princess Elira entered with her usual confidence, her long cloak flowing behind her. The room fell silent as she approached the human. "So," she said, her tone sharp but polite, "you are the human who humiliated my people today?" Orion stood straight. "I only fought with the honor your people gave me, Princess." No more, no less, her eyes narrowed. "Do you believe you are equal to a Zareth warrior?" Orion smiled slightly. "Not equal in strength, perhaps, but strength is not everything." Her jaw tightened. "You speak boldly for one so small, and you judge quickly for one so wise," he replied gently. The words caught her off guard. Around them, alien nobles exchanged amused glances. Some whispered that the human had courage, or foolishness. Elira's cheeks flushed a faint shade of silver. "Enjoy your small victory, Captain. It will be your last." She turned and left the hall, her footsteps echoing behind her. Orion sighed quietly. "Pride is heavy," he murmured, "but I suppose that is the burden of royalty." Outside, the night sky of Zareth Prime glittered with 2 moons and countless stars. Orion stood on a balcony looking out into the alien city. He thought of Earth, its blue oceans, its mountains, its people. Humanity was still young among the stars, but moments like this could change everything. For centuries, humans had dreamed of being part of something larger, of proving their worth beyond their home world. Now that dream was real and fragile. Every action he took could shape how billions of aliens saw humanity. He clenched his fist, whispering, "We are not weak. We are not less. We are human, and we will stand tall." Unbeknownst to him, Empress Thalara watched from the shadows of the hall. Her eyes were thoughtful. "This one," she said quietly to her advisor, "has the fire of a true warrior, but not the arrogance. My daughter could learn from him." The next morning, the galactic news spread across systems. "Human warrior defeats Zareth champion." Some called it luck. Some called it skill. But everyone agreed humanity was no longer invisible. In the royal chambers, Princess Elira stared at the news display, her pride burning. "I will not be remembered as the princess whose empire was shamed by a human," she said coldly. She looked toward the window, where the morning light reflected off the city's towers. "If this Orion Hayes wishes to prove himself worthy, then I shall test him myself." She smiled faintly, not with kindness, but with challenge. Far below, unaware of what was coming, Orion prepared for the next stage of his mission, to represent Earth at the council meeting. He had no idea that his path and the proud princesses were about to collide in ways that would change both of their destinies, and perhaps the entire galaxy. The morning after the great duel, the city of Zareth Prime still buzzed with talk about the human warrior who had defeated a Zareth champion. Holoscreens replayed the fight again and again, showing how Captain Orion Hayes used speed and strategy to win. For many aliens, it was shocking. For others, it was insulting, and for Princess Elira Zareth, it was unbearable. She sat in her private chamber, her long silver hair flowing over her shoulders, her sharp eyes fixed on the holographic replay of Orion's victory. Every time the human dodged a blow or landed a strike, she felt her pride tighten like a knot inside her chest. "He was lucky," she whispered to herself. Nothing more than luck. Her attendant, a calm and loyal aide named Saren, stood nearby. "Your Highness, the people are talking about the human with great respect. They say he fought with intelligence, not arrogance." Elira turned sharply. "Do they forget who we are? The Zareth have ruled for 1,000 years. No human, no outsider, can take that honor from us." Saren bowed her head. "Of course, Princess. But perhaps his victory could teach us." Elira raised her hand. "Enough, I will not be lectured about a human. Prepare my transport. I will see this captain for myself." In the Central Embassy District, Orion was busy meeting various council members. Every alien seemed to look at him differently now, some with curiosity, some with silent resentment. But Orion kept his posture straight and his voice calm. He wasn't there to boast. He was there to represent Earth with dignity. When he stepped out of the council hall, he found a royal escort waiting. The guards bowed slightly, and one of them said, "Captain Orion Hayes, Her Highness Princess Elira requests your presence at the royal training ground." Orion blinked in surprise. The princess herself? Yes, Captain. She insists, Orion smiled politely. Then it would be rude to refuse. He followed them through long corridors and out onto a wide terrace where sunlight poured over a vast open courtyard. It was a royal combat ground. Smooth silver tiles, practice dummies, and weapon racks glowing with alien energy. And standing at the center was Princess Elira herself. She wore light training armor and carried a slender blade that shimmered blue. When Orion stepped forward, she gave him a cold smile. Captain Hayes, you are quite the topic of discussion among my people. Orion bowed respectfully. Your Highness, I am honored to meet you formally. Her tone was sharp. I have already seen enough of your skill in the arena, but I wish to know, was it skill or was it simply luck? Orion met her gaze calmly. It was preparation, Your Highness. Luck favors the prepared, her eyes narrowed. Big words for someone who barely survived. I survived, he said softly, because I refused to quit. Elira tilted her head. Then show me this spirit of yours. She tossed him a practice weapon, a light staff made of plasma alloy. Let us see if your victory was real. The match began. Elira moved fast, faster than any human Orion had ever faced. Her blade cut through the air like lightning, and each strike carried both power and elegance. She wasn't fighting to kill, but to prove something, that she, a princess of Zareth, was not beneath a human. Orion parried each blow, carefully adjusting his stance. He could tell she was testing him, not trying to harm him. He responded with respect, blocking her attacks without aggression. Is this all you can do? She teased, striking again. Where is your clever human mind now? Orion smiled slightly. Thinking, princess. Always thinking. He sidestepped her next swing and lightly tapped her wrist with his staff. Not enough to hurt, just enough to show he could have disarmed her. Elira froze, her silver eyes flashing with shock. Then anger, you mock me? Never, Orion said calmly. I only remind you, Emma, even the smallest movement can change the outcome of a fight. She glared at him but said nothing. She turned away and took a deep breath. For the first time she realized she had underestimated him. Again. When the match ended, Orion bowed respectfully. You are an excellent fighter, princess. It was an honor to train with you. Elira gave no reply. She simply said, you may go. As Orion left, Saren approached her quietly. He fought with control, Your Highness. You both did. Elira didn't answer. Her gaze remained fixed on the door through which the human had exited. There was something about his calmness that unsettled her. Not weakness, but strength without pride. She whispered to herself, he should have boasted. He should have gloated, but he did not. Over the next few days, Elira found herself noticing the human more often. During meetings, Orion spoke only when needed, always with respect. During banquets, he never sought attention, yet every word he said carried weight. Other ambassadors argued or bragged. Orion listened, learned, and spoke with quiet confidence. It was strange. His humility made him stand out more than arrogance ever could. Still, Elira refused to admit her growing curiosity. Instead, she continued to test him in small ways. At a dinner event, she addressed him in front of many nobles. Tell me, Captain Hayes, she said in a playful yet cutting tone. On Earth, do warriors dine before or after their superiors? The room went silent. The nobles smirked, waiting for the human to stumble. Orion simply smiled and replied, On Earth, Your Highness, true warriors wait until everyone is served. Respect always comes before hunger. A small wave of laughter ran through the crowd, not at him, but at the cleverness of his reply. Even the Empress smiled faintly from her seat. Elira's smirk vanished. She had tried to embarrass him, but instead he had answered with grace. Later that night in her chambers, she paced back and forth. Why does he not react? Why does he not get angry? She asked herself. No one ever speaks to me that way, and yet he does it without fear. Saren, standing nearby, said softly, Perhaps he is not trying to challenge you, princess. Perhaps he just speaks the truth. Elira frowned. Truth? The truth is that humans are new to our world. They are small, fragile, and yet, Saren interrupted gently, he defeated one of our best. He faced you without fear, and he speaks with more calm than most generals. Elira fell silent. Her pride didn't want to accept it, but her heart could not deny it. Orion was different. The next day, during a council session, Aelira sat beside her mother, the Empress, who watched the human closely. After the meeting, Thalara said, "You've been restless lately, my daughter." Aelira avoided her gaze. "It is nothing, mother." The Empress smiled knowingly. "Is it because of the human?" Alira's eyes widened slightly. "Why would you think that?" Thalara laughed softly. "Because I see the same fire in you that I saw when you first trained for battle. You feel challenged not by his strength, but by his composure. You wish to understand him." Aelira turned away. "He is confusing." "Perhaps confusion is good," Thalara said. "It means your mind is opening. Pride can build walls, Aelira, but sometimes the universe rewards those who listen." Meanwhile, Orion returned to his quarters, unaware that his calm behavior had become the subject of royal interest. He simply reviewed his mission reports and sent a message back to Earth Command. "Diplomatic progress continues," he wrote. "Some cultural friction, but we're earning respect. The Zareth may not like us yet, but they are beginning to see us." He paused, then added quietly, "Especially the princess. She watches me like a storm waiting to strike." He smiled to himself and closed the report. "I'll be ready." That evening, as the twin suns set over the skyline of Zareth Prime, Aelira stood on her balcony, watching the orange light fade into purple night. She thought about the duel, the training match, and every word the human had spoken. For the first time in her life, she didn't feel only pride, and she felt curiosity. A strange, quiet respect was forming inside her heart, though she refused to admit it. She whispered into the wind, "You think you can stand beside us, human? We'll see how long your courage lasts." Her reflection in the window looked back at her, proud yet uncertain. Far across the city in his modest quarters, Orion looked at the same sky and said softly, "We're not enemies, princess. One day you'll see that." The great city of Zareth Prime glittered beneath its twin suns, preparing for the annual Unity Banquet, an event where leaders from dozens of species gathered to discuss peace and alliances. It was the most important celebration of the year, a time to strengthen relations between the great empires. For Captain Orion Hayes, it was another chance to represent Earth with honor. For Princess Aelira, it was a test, to see whether this human could truly belong among the galaxy's strongest civilizations. But for Empress Thalara, it was the perfect moment to reveal a secret that would shock them all. The grand palace sparkled with crystal lights. Long tables stretched across the main hall, decorated with golden dishes and fruits from many worlds. Music filled the air, calm and elegant, but with a hint of tension beneath it. Orion entered wearing his formal uniform, the Earth emblem shining proudly on his chest. Every step he took drew quiet stares from alien nobles. Some respected him. Others still refused to accept his place. Aelira sat beside her mother at the high table, dressed in a gown of silver light. Her expression was calm, but her thoughts were in turmoil. For days she had tried to understand the human's strength, not in power, but in character. And yet part of her still refused to accept him. When Orion bowed before the Empress and greeted her with his calm voice, Aelira's heart skipped slightly, not from affection, but from the strange weight in his presence. He spoke to her mother as if they were equals, yet without arrogance. "Your Majesty," Orion said respectfully, "thank you for allowing Earth to take part in this noble gathering. We hope to prove that humanity values peace and unity as much as any other race." Thalara smiled gently. "You have already proven much, Captain Hayes." Aelira glanced at her mother, surprised by the warmth in her tone. As the banquet continued, food and conversation flowed. Delegates spoke of trade, technology, and defense. Yet beneath the polite words there was hidden tension. Many feared the rise of humanity, a young species growing too quickly. Finally, when the meal ended, the Empress rose from her throne. The hall fell silent. Her voice carried through the room with power and grace. "Leaders and friends of the galaxy," she began, "today marks not only a time for unity, but a time for change. Our worlds face new challenges, distrust, division, and fear of what is different. But I believe that together we can rise beyond that." She paused, letting her words sink in. Then she turned her gaze toward Aelira and Orion. "And to prove that our bonds can overcome fear, I have made a decision that will unite two great peoples, the Zareth Empire and the Human Alliance." Whispers filled the hall. Delegates exchanged confused glances. Aelira frowned. "Mother, what are you saying?" Thalara smiled softly. I speak of a union, a bond that will forever join our species in peace. Princess Elira of Zareth will be united with Captain Orion Hayes of Earth. The hall exploded with noise. Gasps, shouts, and disbelief filled the air. Elira's heart stopped. What? She whispered, unable to believe her ears. Orion himself froze, his eyes wide with shock. For a moment he wondered if he had misheard. But Thalara's calm voice continued. This decision was approved by the Galactic Council. Our world and Earth will stand together, through a union of royal blood and human courage. Elira stood up abruptly. Mother, this is madness. I cannot. I will not marry a human. Thalara looked at her gently. You will, my daughter. This is the path to peace, the nobles murmured in outrage. One of the Zareth generals shouted, An insult to our bloodline. How can a human be worthy of our princess? The Empress's tone hardened. He is worthy because he has already proven his strength. He fought with honor, and he humbled our pride without hatred. That is the kind of strength our people need. Orion finally spoke, his voice steady despite the chaos. Your Majesty, I am honored, but this decision is great beyond words. I did not seek such a bond, Thalara nodded. I know. That is why you are the right choice. You do not crave power. You respect it. Elira clenched her fists, her anger mixing with confusion. He is not one of us. He does not understand our ways. Orion turned toward her calmly. You're right, Princess. I don't. But I'm willing to learn, if it brings peace between our worlds. Her eyes burned with emotion. You dare speak of peace while my people laugh at me behind my back? He answered softly. Let them laugh if it builds a bridge between our worlds. Honor doesn't come from what others think. It comes from what we stand for. For a moment, even she could not find words to reply. The Empress raised her hand, silencing the room. It is decided. The union will take place within the next lunar cycle. Let all remember, unity is born from courage, not fear. The hall echoed with whispers and unrest. Delegates left in silence, and soon the grand room was nearly empty. Elira stood frozen, her breath shaking. Finally, she turned toward her mother. Why, Mother? Why him? Thalara looked at her daughter with kind but firm eyes. Because he is everything our empire has forgotten, humble, brave, and honest. You see weakness in him because he reminds you of what we once were before pride blinded us. I will never accept this, Elira said bitterly. Thalara touched her shoulder gently. You will not have to accept it now, but you will understand it one day. Elira pulled away and stormed out of the hall, her silver gown trailing behind her like a storm cloud. Outside, in the quiet garden, Orion stood alone under the starlight. He could hear faint music from the banquet fading in the distance. The cool wind brushed against his face. He closed his eyes and took a deep breath. He hadn't asked for this, yet he couldn't deny what it meant. A chance to unite two civilizations. A chance to show that humanity was more than what others believed, but he also knew the cost. Elira hated him. The nobles despised him, and the galaxy watched every move he made. Footsteps approached from behind. He turned to see Elira standing there, her eyes cold and filled with anger. Was this your plan all along? She asked sharply. Win a fight, earn glory, and climb into a royal seat? Orion shook his head. No, Princess. I didn't know. I swear it, she glared at him. Then why didn't you refuse? He met her gaze firmly. Because if this bond brings peace, then it is bigger than both of us. I serve my people, just as you serve yours. Elira took a step closer. You think you can stand beside me? You, a human? Orion replied quietly. I don't need to stand above you, Princess. Just beside you, as an equal. His words hit her like a spark. For the first time, she couldn't tell whether she felt anger or something else, something strange and heavy in her chest. Without another word, she turned and walked away, her voice trembling slightly. You will regret this. Captain. Orion watched her leave, then whispered softly, Maybe, but peace is worth any risk. That night, the Empress stood at her palace window, looking over the glowing city. Her advisor approached. Your Majesty, he said carefully, you have caused great unrest. The nobles are furious. The army is uncertain. Thalara smiled faintly. Change always begins with unrest. The galaxy will see that humanity is not a threat, but a hope. She gazed up at the stars. And perhaps my daughter will see what I see, a fire that can light the future. In her private room, Elira sat by the mirror, her reflection filled with confusion. She whispered, "How can my mother trust him so easily? How can she believe that human will save our empire?" But when she closed her eyes, she saw Orion's calm face, his steady gaze, and his words. "I don't need to stand above you, just beside you." Her heart ached with a feeling she didn't understand. Anger, pride, respect, and all mixed into one. She clenched her fists. "Fine, human. If fate says you are to be my husband, then you will have to prove yourself every step of the way." She looked at the stars and whispered, "You may have won the arena, but you haven't won me." Days passed after the shocking announcement, and the city of Zareth Prime seemed alive with tension. The nobles whispered in secret chambers, debating the wisdom of the Empress's decision. Some believed the human Captain Orion Hayes was unworthy. Others worried that Princess Elira might resist the bond, causing unrest across the empire. Elira herself spent her days in quiet defiance. She trained harder than ever, swinging her plasma blade with precision and speed, her anger fueling every strike. She would not allow a human to earn respect so easily, no matter what her mother said. Orion, meanwhile, continued his duties as Earth's representative. Despite the palace whispers and subtle snubs, he maintained his calm composure. He knew the only way to survive in this alien environment was through patience, discipline, and respect. But fate had its own plans. Late one night, a warning arrived from the palace security network. Unknown pirates loyal to rival alien factions were planning an attack. Their goal was simple yet deadly: kidnap Princess Elira and prevent the union from taking place. The Empress summoned her commanders. "We cannot allow harm to come to the princess. Captain Hayes, I need you to lead a small team and protect her." Orion's eyes widened slightly. "I will do everything in my power, Your Majesty." Elira, who had overheard the plan, stepped forward, her expression defiant. "I don't need protection." Thalara raised an eyebrow. "Perhaps not, but this is not a battle of pride. It is survival." Elira clenched her jaw but nodded reluctantly. She would fight her way through the attack. And she would prove that humans, even brave ones, were not enough to impress her. That night, under the cover of darkness, Orion led a small squad of elite Earth soldiers and loyal Zareth guards through the palace's corridors. The palace, normally shining with silver light, now echoed with tension. Every shadow could hide an enemy. Orion whispered instructions with calm authority. "Stay alert. Move silently. Protect the princess at all costs." Elira followed, her blade at the ready. Despite her pride, she could not deny the human's careful planning. Every step he took was deliberate, every command precise. Suddenly, a loud explosion rocked the palace courtyard. Pirates had arrived. They were fast and well-armed, using advanced cloaking devices to appear and disappear. Elira leaped forward instinctively, cutting down a cloaked attacker before he could strike. Orion followed her closely, using strategy rather than brute force. He anticipated the movements of the enemy, disarming them and guiding the team. The fight was fierce. The pirates were relentless, their energy weapons cutting arcs of blue across the dark courtyard. But Orion's calm focus and the Zareth soldiers' skill proved formidable. Even Elira noticed how effectively the human coordinated the team. "You are surprisingly capable," she admitted quietly, ducking under a heavy strike. Orion glanced at her, giving a brief nod. "I am effective only when others trust me. That includes you." She looked away, embarrassed to feel a flicker of respect for him. The battle continued for what felt like hours. Orion and Elira fought back to back, each protecting the other. Sparks flew from clashing weapons and shouts echoed across the palace grounds. When the last pirate fell, Orion collapsed from exhaustion. Elira rushed to his side, her silver eyes wide with worry. "You are hurt," she exclaimed. "I'm fine," he said, struggling to rise. "We all survived. That is what matters." For the first time, Elira saw Orion not as a human to mock, but as someone stronger than she imagined, not because of brute strength, but because of courage, leadership, and a willingness to risk everything for others. After the battle, the Empress arrived with reinforcements. She found her daughter kneeling beside the human who had once defied her pride. Thalara's eyes softened as she watched the scene. "You see, my daughter?" the Empress said quietly. "True strength is not in arrogance or pride. It is in courage, wisdom, and heart." Elira looked up at her mother, then at Orion. She could not speak. There was a strange warmth in her chest, a feeling she could not name. Orion finally stood, supporting himself with a hand on her shoulder. "We did well," he said simply, his voice steady despite his exhaustion. Elira could only nod. For the first time, she felt a flicker of admiration, not for his human origin, but for the man himself. In the following days, the palace prepared for the formal ceremonies. The attack had reminded everyone that the galaxy was full of danger, and that the alliance between Earth and Zareth was fragile. Orion continued to train alongside Elira. At first, she tested him with small challenges, attempting to catch him off guard. Yet every time he met her with calm focus, never mocking, never arrogant. "You are infuriatingly clever," she admitted one day after a sparring session, her chest heaving from exertion. He smiled lightly. "I only try to keep up with you, princess." Her cheeks flushed. "Do not flatter me, human. You are not allowed to." "I do not flatter," he replied. "I only speak truth. And truth is, you are an excellent fighter." She looked away, uncertain how to respond. She did not want to admit that she enjoyed his company, that she respected him. Pride still burned in her heart, but something had changed. One evening, Orion stood on a balcony overlooking the city, reviewing security reports and council messages. Elira approached quietly, her steps soft on the marble floor. "You never rest," she said, her tone neutral but curious. "Rest can wait," he replied. "The galaxy does not sleep." She leaned on the railing beside him, her silver eyes reflecting the starlight. "Why do you endure so much, human? You are far from home, facing my people, risking your life, and yet you remain calm." Orion looked at her, meeting her gaze. "Because I have a duty, and because I believe that courage is stronger than fear." Elira stayed silent, thinking. The wind blew through her hair, carrying with it the smell of the city and the distant stars. For the first time, she felt something she did not understand. A mixture of respect, curiosity, and something else. Something unfamiliar. "You are not like anyone I have ever met," she finally said softly. "Neither are you," he replied with a faint smile. The days turned into weeks. Training, diplomacy, and preparations for the formal union continued. Elira's attitude toward Orion shifted subtly. She still tested him, still argued with him, but she no longer saw him as weak or inferior. She noticed how he treated everyone, humans and aliens alike, with respect. How he did not boast or seek favor, yet earned it naturally. How he put others first, even at his own risk. And one night, as they sparred under the twin moons, she realized it. She trusted him. He parried her strike, then gently held her wrists, smiling. "You are growing stronger every day, princess. Soon no one will be able to challenge you." Elira's chest tightened. "And you?" she asked quietly. "Are you strong enough to stand beside me?" "I will always be," he replied without hesitation. For a long moment she studied his face. There was no pride, no arrogance, only honesty and courage. Something deep inside her began to shift. Pride and anger still existed, but so did admiration, respect, and perhaps something more. The Empress watched quietly from the shadows. She had chosen well. Orion had proven his courage in battle, his wisdom in strategy, and his loyalty in protecting the princess. And now, Thalara whispered softly to herself, the bond is no longer just a decree. It is growing in truth, forged in fire and courage. My daughter will understand soon enough. As the first stars appeared in the night sky, Orion and Elira stood together on the palace terrace. The city below sparkled like a sea of diamonds, a reminder that their worlds were vast yet connected. Elira's voice was soft, almost a whisper. "Captain Hayes, we are bound by more than duty now. Are you ready for what comes next?" Orion turned to her, calm and steady as always. "Whatever comes, Princess, I will face it with you. Together." She looked at him, her silver eyes reflecting both uncertainty and a growing warmth. "Together," she repeated, letting the word sink into her heart. And for the first time she allowed herself to feel something she had never imagined. Not weakness, but a quiet trust. The twin suns of Zareth Prime rose over the city, casting golden light across the silver towers and crystal streets. Today was unlike any other, the day of the Union ceremony, when the bond between humanity and the Zareth Empire would be made official. The palace was alive with activity. Nobles from countless species arrived dressed in ceremonial attire. Holoscreens broadcast the event to distant worlds. The galaxy watched. For Captain Orion Hayes, this was more than ceremony. It was a chance to show that humanity belonged among the stars and not as conquerors but as allies. For Princess Elira, it was a test of her own heart and pride. She had spent weeks training, preparing, and questioning everything she believed about strength, courage, and the human standing beside her. The Empress, Thalara, sat at the high table, calm and proud. She had seen both the struggles and the growth, in her daughter and in Orion. The ceremony began in the palace courtyard, decorated with banners of both Earth and Zareth. Citizens and visitors filled the terraces, cheering quietly as the procession began. Orion entered first, dressed in formal Earth attire. His movements were steady and dignified. Every step he took radiated confidence, honor, and calm. Elira followed, wearing a silver ceremonial gown that shimmered like moonlight. Her eyes scanned the crowd, but they eventually settled on Orion. Pride, respect, and a strange new feeling, admiration, filled her gaze. The Empress stood and raised her voice, addressing the assembly. Today we mark the union of two peoples, humanity and the Zareth Empire, not through conquest, not through fear, but through courage, wisdom, and honor. Captain Orion Hayes of Earth and Princess Elira Zareth shall be united, a symbol of hope for our worlds. The hall erupted in applause. Even some nobles who had opposed the bond nodded, acknowledging the courage it had taken to survive the trials, the attacks, and the weeks of preparation. Elira's heart raced as she stepped forward. Memories of past days came to her, Orion's calm voice, his quiet courage during the pirate attack, and the way he treated everyone with respect. She remembered the first time he had stood in the arena, facing her champion without fear. She remembered his words, "I don't need to stand above you, just beside you, as an equal." A strange warmth filled her chest. Pride battled with curiosity, anger battled with respect, and slowly, admiration began to take root. Orion extended his hand toward her. "Princess Elira," he said softly, "I am honored to stand beside you today. Not as a stranger, not as a human from another world, but as someone who hopes to protect and respect you, always." She hesitated, then took his hand. The touch was gentle, steady, a silent promise. The Empress began the ceremonial words, speaking of unity, peace, and the responsibilities of both leaders. As she spoke, the crowd watched closely, listening for any sign of hesitation or discord. But neither Elira nor Orion wavered. Their hands remained joined, their eyes locked in silent understanding. The weeks of tension, challenge, and trials had forged something stronger than fear, a bond of trust and courage. When the Empress finished, she looked at her daughter. "Elira, the galaxy will see not only the strength of the Zareth, but the honor of humanity. Together you are a bridge between worlds." Elira nodded, her voice steady, though her chest still fluttered. "Yes, Mother. Together." Orion smiled lightly, answering in the same quiet tone. "Together, Princess." The crowd erupted into cheers, applause echoing across the palace terraces. From Earth colonies to distant alien worlds, spectators celebrated the unity. For the first time, humans were not seen as weak newcomers, but as equals, as brave, intelligent, and honorable allies. As the ceremony concluded, Elira and Orion stepped toward the balcony to address the assembly. Orion's voice carried across the crowd. "People of the Zareth Empire, citizens of Earth, and all who watch this day, today is proof that strength is not measured only by power or skill. It is measured by courage, honor, and the willingness to stand for what is right. Humanity stands with you not to rule but to protect, respect, and unite." The crowd remained silent for a heartbeat, then erupted into cheers again, louder than before. Elira looked at him with eyes wide, filled with admiration and an emotion she dared not name. After the ceremony, as the crowd slowly dispersed, Illyra turned to Orion. Her silver hair shimmered in the sunlight. "You have changed everything," she said softly. "I only did what was right," Orion replied. "It was not for glory, but for peace and understanding." She hesitated, then said quietly, "I misjudged you. I thought you were weak, small, and unworthy. But I see now, strength is not only muscle or weapon, it is heart, mind, and courage." Orion smiled. "Thank you, Princess. That means more than I can say." Her lips curved into a faint, genuine smile. "Do not expect me to admit this often," she said teasingly. "I wouldn't dream of it," he replied. In the weeks that followed, the union brought tangible results. Trade agreements were finalized, security alliances were strengthened, and mutual respect grew between humans and Zareth. The galaxy slowly began to see humanity in a new light, not as newcomers, but as partners. Illyra trained with Orion frequently, their sparring now a mixture of challenge and camaraderie. Each learned from the other, bridging the gap between species. Her attitude softened, though her pride remained intact. Orion in turn continued to show respect and patience, teaching her the ways of Earth without diminishing her Zareth heritage. Their bond became an example, not of forced obedience, but of mutual respect, courage, and understanding. One evening, as the twin moons rose over the city, Illyra stood with Orion on the palace terrace. The city below sparkled with life, a testament to unity and progress. "You were right," she said softly. "Peace does not come from strength alone. It comes from courage, honesty, and trust." Orion nodded. "And from standing beside each other even when the world doubts you." Illyra looked at him, her heart calm yet full. "I used to see you as an outsider, someone beneath me. But now, I see you as someone I can rely on, always." He smiled, placing a hand over hers. "And I will. Always." She allowed herself a small laugh, the first without anger or pride. "You may have conquered the arena, human, but you've also conquered my stubborn heart." Orion chuckled lightly. "Then I will continue to earn your trust every day." For a moment, the two stood in silence, watching the stars appear in the clear night sky. Beyond the palace and the city, the galaxy waited, vast and full of challenges. But together, they were ready. Illyra whispered softly, almost to herself, "We are stronger together than we ever were apart." Orion squeezed her hand gently. "Yes, Princess. Together, we can face anything." And so, humanity's place among the stars was no longer uncertain. Through courage, honor, and unwavering spirit, one human warrior had proven that even the smallest and youngest species could stand with the greatest empires, not beneath them, but as equals, as partners, as a force for hope. As the twin moons shone above Zareth Prime, a new age began, one of unity, understanding, and the unbreakable human spirit.